Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're joining us from today in the world. And welcome to this 6th session of the business content at the 60th Monte-Carlo Television Festival, coming to you live from the Principality of Monaco. We're bringing you a hybrid event today, both in person and online. We have virtual participants joining us from the US, from LA, from New York, and we have our panelists in the conference room joining us from France, from Belgium, and from Spain. So we're very international. The Biz Content, it includes this exceptional lineup of legendary showrunners, international producers, and industry executives who are collectively shaping the future of television. The next session that we're bringing you now is very on the ball and very current. It's Upending the global film distribution model, the migration from movie theatre to streaming. So we're going to hear all about that in a few minutes. We're sure that you're going to enjoy. We've still got a few sessions left tomorrow. We've got 2 keynotes and a virtual panel. So please do join us tomorrow morning as well. And just a quick few, I see we have some people coming in on Zoom as well. So if you, please feel free to just drop us a line, put in the chat box where you're from. We like to hear where you're from. And also, please feel free, at the end of the session, we will have some Q&A with the audience here and also on Zoom. So please do put your questions into the Q&A box and we will hand those over to the panelists and the moderator at the end of the session. So we also have social media, so please do share what you think about the session and the festival business content in general. We have LinkedIn, Twitter, we have loads of social media for you, and spread the word. So I think that's about it from me, and I'm going to hand you over to our great moderator, and I'm going to get his name right, Remi Tereszkiewicz, who is the CEO of BetaSeries in France. He'll tell you a little bit about that, and then we want to welcome Didier will bring you in to welcome your panelists, but I would just like to say thank you to Didier again, joining us from Allouch, joining us from LA, and also to Marian Koltai-Levine joining us from New York, and last but not least, virtually, Shannon Mcintosh from Macintosh Films joining us also from LA. So over to you, Remi. We'll just have a quick short clip and then over to you. Thank you. Enjoy the session.
Hello everybody, let us start then this panel Upending the global distribution model about the current migration we observe from theater to streaming. I'm Remi Tereszkiewicz from BetaSeries, media partner of the festival. BetaSeries is the media platform providing TV series recommendations and insights about the TV series and movies usages in the OTT space. Let me first introduce our panelists. And first, physically here with me in Monte-Carlo, to my right, Mathilde Fiquet, Secretary General of CEPI, the European Audiovisual Production Association, representing independent television and film producers. Gerardo Herrero, Spanish film director and producer with more than 175 movies and TV series, so quite a credit to your company Tornasol. And you have, by the way, one TV series here in competition, Anna All in the festival. And from LA and New York on Zoom, Marian Koltai-Levine, President Film Group from Rogers Cowen PMK. You're a strategic marketing communication professional with over 25 years of experience in film and marketing. And to be noted, you've been named one of the 100 most powerful women in Hollywood by The Hollywood Reporter. Shannon Mcintosh, you're a producer of many acclaimed movies, such as, I just picked a few of them, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or The Hateful Eight. you've been recognized with several prestigious awards, like the Golden Globe and many others. And Didier Allouch, French film journalist, expert in this movie and TV industry. You were a reporter, a producer for CANAL+, and you are the correspondent based in LA, so that's why you are in the Zoom and not with us today. So I just recapped the little pitch of this session. The new streaming services have accelerated their distribution and their base of users during the worldwide pandemic and brought unprecedented changes in the theatrical movie distribution business. Leading film studios in Hollywood, Europe, and elsewhere looked to their own streaming platforms to replace the shuttered movie theaters, bringing tentpole entertainment directly into consumers' homes for the first time. As the world begins to emerge from the grip of the virus, and we'll check that point, what will the future of film distribution hold? And I start immediately with testimonies. I propose to rewind a little bit in time and to talk together about the COVID lockdown time. The lockdown time not that long ago, with some of your comments. Maybe Didier, as an observer of this industry, what did happen during this lockdown? Did the studios release massively their feature films to the platforms?
Well, it's a bit paradoxical. I mean, for a while, nothing happened, but everything happened. I mean, we started this. I mean, let me start about talking about my personal experience. I did a junket in New York in March 2020, beginning of March. I think it was March 2nd or March 3rd. And the movie got released in theater a couple of weeks ago, 1 year and a half, almost 1 year and 4 months after that. Because when I came back in LA, the movie was a Quiet Place Part 2. When I came back to LA, it was March 5th. And a couple of days later, everybody was talking about, yeah, maybe nothing will get released, maybe something happened. And March 19th, everything closed. Everything. I mean, everything. I witnessed something I didn't think I would witness one day in this business. I mean, we had the writer strike. We have a few stuff that blocked part of the industry. But from this day on, the entire industry was shut down. Everything, production, distribution, marketing, cinema, everything was shut down. LA was totally empty. Nobody was working. Everybody was asking himself, first of all, can I keep my family safe? And second of all, will I ever work another day in my life? We didn't know what was happening. It was the same in all the industries. And I'm not putting it outside of anything or putting this industry above anything else, but it was really weird to watch. I mean, it's an industry that everybody is watching and everybody wants to know what's happening. And it was totally shut down, complete shutdown. So we have to, at this time, we're in March, we have to take a step back, breathe a little, see what's happening, make sure that everybody's safe, make sure everybody in their home and safe, again, that was the first word everybody had in their mind. And then after that, we started to think, what would happen? What will happen? And I must say that the first one to react, the first one that kind of jumped the wagon here, were the streamers. They did react very, very quickly. They didn't stop. There was one of the industries that the only sector in the industry that didn't stop at all. Of course, the production was shut down, but the distribution was still here. They realized pretty quickly that people were at home. They had nothing to do. They wanted entertainment, and they took the job of everybody else. They took the job of the movie theater, they took the job of the distribution, they replaced it very quickly. First of all, it was Netflix and TV shows like, forgive me if I get the date wrong, but Tiger King was one of the first, and then there was Queen's Gambit, they all came by, and everybody was watching. I mean, Ozark, the new season of Ozark was released. The numbers were terrific. I mean, first weekend, I think 70 million people was watching. We had nothing else to do, literally. Keep the family safe and watch TV shows on Netflix. That was our program of the day. This was it. And the industry got into a kind of the word is maybe too strong, but I can find another one, so forgive me, kind of a panic state. What do we do? What will happen? I mean, Shannon, Marian, you will talk about that and how the spirit was at the time in America. But it was will we go back to a normal? Will we go back to something that we know? Of course not. Of course, things cannot go back to normal after such an event. But they had to adapt. And little by little, because the industry, because the cinema industry, because the production industry is a very resilient one, they found solution. First of all, production restarted. A couple of months later, July 2nd or 3rd, you will give me the exact date, but beginning of July, production restarted. Why? Because everybody sat at the table, all the guilds, DGA, Directors Guild, Writers Guild, Screen Actors Guild, they worked. For once, it's a miracle. You know, guys, if you produce, you know that it's a miracle. They work together. They talk to each other. They found a way to make shooting a movie safe. They found protocols which are pretty strict and very well observed. After a year now, we can say that it is very well observed. And they found a way to restart the industry. Why? Because the streamers were asking for new products. Because they needed new TV shows for us to watch in the fall. They need a new film, and the distribution itself reorganized. We saw the first movies that got pushed back. The James Bond movie was a perfect example of what happened during this time. It's called No Time to Die, perfect title. And it was pushed back. It was supposed to be released in April. It was pushed back to fall, sorry. And then it was pushed back to April 2021. And then it was pushed back to next fall. They didn't know what to do with the movies. So some distributor decided to keep the film, to say, okay, we're gonna wait, it's not a problem. Universal did that very well with Fast and Furious 9, which was pushed back 1 year. It's gonna get released by the end of the month, and it's gonna make tons of money. I've seen the movie, it's unbelievable. And some waited, some said, okay, we're gonna have some time. Sony did that. Sony did push back Ghostbusters, a reboot of Ghostbusters. They waited, it's fine. But some couldn't wait. I mean, so what did they do? They sold their movie to the streamers. Paramount did that a lot. Some others did. If they had a streamer themselves, they distributed them through their streamers. Disney with Disney Plus. Soul, the Pixar movie, is a perfect example of that. The first one was Onward, another Pixar movie. We were like, really? They're going to do that? They did it. There was kind of a controversy, but it was done. We understood very well that they had to make their money back. They had to find a way to put money in their registers, and we understood that it wasn't a problem. There was another option that Universal took with an animated movie, Trolls 2. What did they do? They released the movie on premium VOD. Everybody was like nuts. I mean, the theater runners, it was the first movie to do that. They were like crazy. The anger was strong. One of a chain said, I will never work with Universal anymore, never ever. Of course, they're working with them now. But there was an outroar. There was really. But Universal said, well, we have to release this movie. What do we do? So they released it on premium VOD. They made tons of money. Once again, we were at home. We had nothing to do with our kids. Put them in front of the TV, buy them the new Trolls. Okay, it's $20, $25. But hey, it's fine. They can watch it as much as they want. You put a kid in front of an animated movie he likes, he's going to watch it 25 times, so it's fine. Everybody paid. They didn't release any figure official, but the rumor is that they made like more than $100 million in PVOD. So everybody was starting to reorganize, and they found a solution. They found a way. So now, to conclude all this, now a year later, all that happened, and that we're going to be talking about during this panel, all that happened during this period is becoming an habit. It's becoming the new normal. There is some differences that we're going to talk about, but the streamer services found a way to become part of our life. I mean, going to the theater will still exist, but now, to be honest, if you want to see not a big movie like an Avenger or a Pixar or Fast 9, but if you want to see a small movie or medium movie, to be honest, we watch first if it's not on the streamer. Because we took a subscription to HBO Max, to Disney Plus, to Paramount Plus, to Hulu and everything. So we're paying a fortune on that. So If it's on the streamer, maybe we think about, let's watch it at home and maybe not going to the theater. So the habits of the consumer has changed. This is the most important. All the rest, the industry will adapt, but the habits have changed, and that we will not go back.
Clearly, we see that also in the figures of BetaSeries, the huge increase of usage, and also concerning movies, the fact that typically the usage was more dedicated, is still more dedicated to TV series, but movies take more and more shares also within the streamers' consumption. Marian, in your activities, how did you go through the crisis? Because, I mean, did you stop working or reallocate some money? What happened?
We actually had the reverse happen for us on the marketing side, because what had happened was, as Didier said, the pivot was actually quite quick. So these streaming services, even whether it's Disney, Paramount Plus, HBO Max, they didn't decide in March to become a platform. They were already platforms. And so what it gave was this incredible accelerated opportunity to get this content going quickly. And so this was already in the works, and in an industry that sometimes moves slow with change in distribution platforms, what happened was everything accelerated. Everyone who had originally planned to develop streaming platforms accelerated their platforms. So as a result, on the marketing and communication side, we were inundated with content. The New York Times, who would never review a film that wasn't in a theater, was also all of a sudden reviewing films that were on streaming platforms, because this was necessity, right? Festivals that were used to only having in-person opportunities were all of a sudden creating these hybrid moments that they have now understood engage a global audience. And so, in my opinion, the silver lining of an incredibly difficult period was that I believe that we have accelerated probably, 5 years forward, where we had already had plans moving. And I think that our audiences have become so much more integrated globally, which is an incredible opportunity for content producers. And I think that the appetite has not diminished from our audiences at all, has only increased. And the only thing that I believe behaviorally has really changed is that our audience wants to see films when they want to see them, how they want to see them. Yeah. Which does not mean they don't want to go to the movie theaters. They do want to go to the theaters. And so I think the business plans probably have altered, but I still believe people will go to the movie theater, they will watch it on their computer, they will watch it on their home screen, they will watch it on their phone. It's about availability. And I think now we've entered into a sort of wonderful new world of finding a way to distinguish our content, but we know these audiences are out there, and they're out there in a global, forceful, attentive way.
So it's nice, a very optimistic point of view that is shared by many professionals, because the content is massively consumed. There is a change of mindset from the consumer, but he wants still to watch maybe other screens, maybe different models, but there is still this huge demand. Shannon, because we discussed about the usage, about the marketing of the content, but the content itself, to get it produced in these hard times, how has it been for you? I mean, how did you manage to survive with your quite operational, in fact, activities?
Well, just to put a period at the end of what they were saying, the conversation had started before the pandemic. Every movie, every piece of content, you would constantly go, is this a movie for the theater, or is this for a platform? So it just got incredibly accelerated during lockdown and the pandemic. But for me in particular, I was shooting a movie. I was 22 days into a 50-day schedule in the United Kingdom when the world shut down. So for me, I came back home to Los Angeles, reset with my family. My kids were starting Zoom school. At the same time, I had to start figuring out how do you set up editors and visual effects artists in their homes. And then after, meeting that requirement and, getting that set successfully, then it's, okay, well, we don't know when this is going to end, but let's start figuring out how we would shoot safely, because we needed to finish shooting the movie, whether it's for the theaters. Our hope was always that it would be for the theaters, because you want people to have that universal experience in the theater and have joy together. And I think even more than ever, we were working really hard to get the movie done so that when the world would open up, people could get back into the theater. But as Didier said, the wonderful thing that happened is that producers, studios, the guilds had to start working together to figure out how can we get everyone back safely and efficiently. And it's looking at whether it's the testing protocols, and also how can you change how you're going to shoot. We were the first location movie back into England to get out there. We had a bigger movie than us that was in the studio shooting ahead of us getting back. So we learned a few things from them, but then we were the first movie out there on many different locations. And we had to analyze, can we have less crew? Can we reimagine this scene to have less people? Can we quarantine people together so that we know that we have no COVID cases are being introduced from outside of our group? And, we went back and shot August, September, and part of October. And, successfully, we had 15,000 COVID tests and we had no COVID cases, a few false positives followed by 2 negatives. But it takes a team who looked at it seriously and really wanted to be working and wanted the product to be done. So at the end of this pandemic, it could be out there. But that movie is it was meant to be theatrical, but because a lot of the world is not vaccinated, we will be a streaming movie. So it will bring joy at whatever time it gets out there in the world. But we have successfully finished, and that felt like itself a feat, working in post-production and sound mixes and all of that in ways that we've never imagined. So, but we've done it. And, again, this conversation of what is theatrical and what is on a streaming platform, really every single day for me, and I'm sure Gerardo can comment to this too, but it's what you analyze as you move forward with your, development, production, every single step.
Thank you. Effectively, Gerardo, in Spain, in your activity, how was this period, this COVID period? First of all, did you manage to work, to continue production?
We stopped from March to end of the summer, and we start shooting after that. And we don't stop nothing because we have too many movies we have to stop, because we just in March we start our first series in Spain, and we have to stop, and we have to stop 3 movies. That means that we have been working the COVID system to go back to shoot, and after that we finish all the movies we have in that. But what I would like to say, because it's very interesting listen what I was listening, that for me I don't see so optimistic in the way they see. I like it, find people who are optimistic, because my point of view is different. I have a point of view of the freedom of the producer. I don't think now the producer are less freedom than before, at least in the Spanish system. That means, but because the platform, in Spain there are Netflix, Amazon, and a Spanish platform who was the CANAL Plus before, and now is the Movistar. The other are starting, but they didn't start really, and they don't start for the movies. They start for series. There is a lot of work for the people who produce series, that most of them are producers of TV. There is maybe there is a little war between the producer of the cinema and the producer of the series, because with the producer of the cinema, we don't follow the rules of the producer of the TVs, because we are the owner of our movies, and the producer of TV never have been the owner of their movies. And what happened in Spain, that the Netflix and Amazon mainly Netflix, because Amazon is starting and then starting very slow, and they especially are different. But Netflix, and for me, Netflix are producing the same movies that they decided to do. They don't do diversity. And I think for me, I am an old producer doing that, had made 150. I didn't arrive to 200, but I always have I did the movies I want to do, not the movies that the companies want to do, not even the companies, not even I work with American, I work with the independent distributor, and today they give me the how is the market in Spain. We are now 81%, we lost 81% in cinemas. This morning, this week, when we start the new opening of the movies, because we didn't stop the same that the rest of the world, because still we have cinema open, not so many, and they only 2 or 3 seasons. But we are still open, but the movies go down in the box office, and in the platform mainly they want to make series. The movies they do, maybe Netflix do 6 movies or 8 movies, and the Amazon they don't have anyone who are Amazon original. They buy rights. They do the same that Movistar or Canal Plus do. They buy the rights from the pay TV, no? And they have a lot of material, but I don't see that the creativity of they are only looking for the I don't know how to say in English, but the same kind of movies is what I see. For that, it's
quite mainstream.
Yes, not that. I think they discover a new kind of movies that are working for them. That maybe for you is very interesting, but not for us. That we don't want to make the movies they want to do. And it's always the way I would like to work is to develop my project and do my project, not do the project of them. That is I don't know if you understand me what I want to say, no? Because the market, we can produce movies nowadays. We are still, and I think the industry is working, because most of the producers have sell the rights of the movies before, no, and the state continue to give a little money that they give us, and now there are a tax incentive that go up, that is going very good. But is now is the model. You have to decide what model is going to be.
That's that's interesting, because that's a point of view maybe more European, and I think that Mathilde could be specific about that, about the fact that independent producers are maybe less supported in this OTT world than they are in the movie industry, and there may be a risk. So, I mean, in Europe, the big concern is about the loss of cultural diversity, and so how do you address the point with the institutions? Is there a big action going on these days?
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to say that I understand what you're saying, Gerardo, and I think it's very interesting, and that's one of the points that we're working at CEPI on. And clearly the pandemic has been what they keep on calling in Brussels an acceleration of transformation. So we knew we had a chance before. You all mentioned the platform. It's been amazing for all of us, including myself, to be able to benefit from streaming platform when we were all stuck at home. But we also hear from many producers, including Herrero and the organization you're part of, about challenges from a European point of view about working with those platforms. They are an opportunity to reach better audience. They also come with project and a lot of capital in Europe. So in certain countries, it's a real opportunity to put the machine into work. But at the same time, there is a question about independence and creativity of the producers, that there is a very strong interest in Europe to actually retain that. And I would say even the more important from a producer's point of view is to be able to choose whether I want to work with a platform and fit within the guidelines set up by those platforms, or I want to use my creativity to be able to produce my content. But if I choose that path, I need to be sure to be supported and to be sure to receive fair treatment when I'm trying to sell it through either a streaming platform or other business model, other distribution model. It's an issue that whenever I discuss with the member of CEPI, it really is what comes first. We are in the midst of change. The role of the producer is changing, and we want, at least the member of CEPI, we want to remain independent producer and we want to have that choice. Unfortunately, it is a topic of discussion that has not yet reached full discussions in Brussels and with the European legislator. At national level, we see some interest depending on countries, but not all countries are going at the same speed. Spain is definitely one of the first with the huge presence of Netflix, but it's not the case in other countries. So we start seeing peak of discussions in Brussels there and then, but there isn't yet a full assessment of what does the presence and the growing presence of streaming platform means for European producers and for the European audiovisual industry in general. And I think one of the area we also have to look is that there are a lot of streaming platforms in Europe, but the biggest ones, and in all countries, if you look at the first two biggest platforms, are always American platform, and that is a subject of interest as well, and that's something we need to look at from opportunities on one hand, but also challenges, especially regarding to relation with producers, but also to intellectual property. I think it's another topic
Yes.
to have a discussion with.
So it's interesting. So this feedback a little bit. I'm more, I would say, worried of what's going on. Do you think that from your US perspective, there will be still a clear balance between this theater distribution and in some way, quite a freedom for creativity, and a risk that the streamers, if there are fewer and fewer, and who knows what will happen, you may have a monopoly in decisions and less possibilities to express yourself. Maybe it's a question of creativity. What do you think of that, Shannon?
Sorry to unmute. I think there's a lot of creativity on both sides. The reality of theaters is it's going to be, and it was heading in this direction, it's your giant blockbusters where you can get, butts in seat, as we say here. And then there are some smaller movies who will roll out a little bit more and, grow as you go. And I think that those will always be there. I think it's our middle ground of movies that it's your medium budget movies that are less and less in theaters and more on the streaming platforms. And I do believe, at least the people I know at the streamers, they do want creativity. There is competition amongst them, whether you're HBO Max, whether you're Hulu, whether you're Amazon, Netflix, and it's only growing. There's a few more that are launching every day. And so I do think they have embraced creativity. They've embraced talent and filmmakers in wonderful ways and allowed them to go make the movies they want to make, because they're also not beholden to those giant marketing dollars to distribute into theater. So I don't know that our creativity is hampered. I think it's just a matter of it's having the conversation ahead of time, like what truly is theatrical. And for me, I love a theater. I love going into a theater. I will always want to be supporting theaters. I think there's something that happens when you go into a room, a crowded room with people, and collectively watch something in the theater. Sadly, the last year and a half has not lent itself to that. It will again one day. And I think we have to continue to fight to put movies into theaters. And at the same time, if you think it's not a movie that's in theaters, you do have places to go. And that's been freeing, because there's certainly movies I have that I've developed. And I think even before the pandemic, I said, not sure this is going to the theater, but what's great is there are other people who'll be willing to make it. And I think that you can see a lot of and Marian can talk to this too. You have a lot of new voices that are getting discovered, I think, because of the different avenues of distribution that are there now.
Yeah. Didier, in your observations on the market? What do you think of that?
I totally agree with Shannon. I mean, I'm an old fart, so cinema theaters will always be in my heart. But I must say that the streamers are doing their job. Let me explain. I go every year to Sundance. This year I did Sundance in my living room, but that's another matter. And every year we see a lot of independent movie, new voices, new author that talks about what they want to talk about. We see a lot of Black movies, diversity movies, a lot of LGBT movies. And these movies, they didn't go into theaters before that. I mean, they had a small distribution in New York or maybe one theater in LA, something like that. It is changing thanks to the streamers. Netflix is doing their job. I don't know if you lady agree with me, but I think they are doing their job. They're buying a lot of movies from Sundance, putting them on their servers, on their streamers. Amazon is doing their job. Netflix doing the job. Hulu is doing it too. And they're giving it an access to their audiences. I mean, of course, there is something cynical about it, and I don't want to get into that. I mean, Netflix knows that they have a lot of minorities in their audience, that they have a lot of targeted audience in their audience. They know that they want movies for them. They know that they want movies for Black audience and minorities movies for minority audience. Okay, fine, it's okay. It's a business. I understand that, but those movies are accessible to us all. I mean, there is a movie, let's take an example, Monsters, that was in Sundance a couple of years ago in 2020. That is a great movie about life in the Black neighborhood. It's very, very good. This movie didn't have distribution, and Netflix bought it, and everybody's seeing it. My daughter saw it, and she talked about it, and this is great. This is great news. I mean, so yes, diversity is arriving in our home, and that is absolutely great. It's part of the discussion now, and the streamers are doing their job, and they are doing it very well. Now, of course, being an old fart, I would love to see this movie. I would love to see these movies in theater. I'm lucky. I'm a journalist. I go to festivals, so I'm watching them on the big screen. I want these possibilities. I don't know if they're all going. The kids are going to see them in theater, but I want the possibility. And this is coming to the biggest problem that we have now in the industry is the closing of theaters. Big chains, big chains, Arclight, Pacific, they are closing down. They are filing bankruptcy. We thought that the crisis would only touch mom and pop theater, family business, the small theaters that would have problem with their, on the money side, they couldn't reopen. No, it's big chains. So of course, some of them will be bought with the reopen as theaters. Distribution is becoming a big problem in this country. Distribution in movie theaters, of course. I think Marian, Shannon, you will be agreeing on
Marian,
that.
yeah, I think it's interesting to react on that. I have one figure, Marian, which is that out of the 8 biggest movies released since it has reopened in the US, 6 were days and date. So you say it was, so I get examples like Godzilla versus Kong, or The Devil, The Conjuring from Warner Brothers, or Raya and the Last Dragon from Disney. So in fact, we see that, as you said, it is accelerating. Till where will it lead us, with the problems of distribution and paying for these empty places, so maybe bankruptcy. So where will it lead us?
Well, I think that, again, I go back to this. I do believe that people want to go to the movie theater. And when you look at those top 6 films that you said, they're going because it's an experience and an experience with the family. I think the consolidation that we're seeing in the theaters with bankruptcy and everything was inevitable, because theaters were already struggling. Part of the problem with theaters is it's a real estate business, right? So, and Remi, I know you do a lot of data. If you take a look at the data of how movie theaters sell, like, occupancy looks like, it's basically Friday through Sunday, right? Monday through Friday, they are at about a 12%, or this is probably an old stat, but pre-COVID, they were at 12% occupancy. So in any business, theater or anything, 12% occupancy will not make for good business sense. And so what I think we're seeing, good or bad, is we're seeing this financial readjustment of the reality. I truly believe that people want experiences. They want to be part of a theatrical community. But I think we did not have a strong business component to what theatrical looked like. And I believe as an industry in total, there were many reasons that the theatrical model was breaking because of requirements that came from streaming, that came from television, that came from awards, et cetera, that required something that didn't financially make sense. The other thing is, look, I think that we are a global audience. And for many, going to a movie theater may not be financially something that they can do, but they still, you want to be able to give that experience. And so I think what's happening is we have a much bigger menu. I think for festivals and the business of acquiring films out of festivals, this has all changed. I remember 20 years ago having conversations with filmmakers when HBO or somebody would want to buy a film, and you would have this discussion. Look, HBO has all these subscribers, but you won't have a theatrical. More people have an opportunity to see your film. More people, hundreds, millions more people than in a movie theater. So this is the dichotomy. And I think, again, like the business model is changing. I think ultimately the question, though, is how it was said originally about, sort of control of creativity and storytelling, which I believe the artist will always have control and they will always find a way, because I think to be an artist, you have this blind ambition to keep going. And I think that will protect it to a degree. I'm not saying there isn't a lot of back and forth, but the financial models are changing and the world has changed. And as you know, as a marketer, I look at it from an optimistic standpoint that there is going to be opportunity that we couldn't have before. I think it has to all lay out. I think it's going to take us several years to find out what that model is, because the industry has to change, and their expectations and their triggers and their rules that, Shannon, you could speak to, where you had to have 750 print release to target your next window and things like that. I think all of that is changing.
But you think there will be a global agreement on the market? Because today we see day and dates, direct to the platforms.
I don't know that you can make global. Yeah, I don't know that you could make global agreements, but certainly the streamers would like to make global agreements. But I don't know that you can totally make a global agreement, but the windowing is certainly changing. And that windowing is a business model. And, I think, again, as artists and creatives, we always find a different way to make that business model work or not work. And so I think you're going to see a lot of experimenting. But I do think there are a lot of platforms. It's not just Amazon, Netflix, Hulu. I mean, they may have the most, but for very targeted audiences, there are a lot more platforms available that people can seek. And so this community engagement, I think, is inspiring.
And you said that effectively, even a tiny audience, thanks to a global platform, you can add all the people per country, and then a super creative and very tiny initial subject can find its audience and be financially viable.
We are seeing we're seeing more and more lifestyle platforms. We're seeing, genre platforms. And so people that are interested in that, I think the bigger question is how many subscription services do people want to pay for? Again, pre-COVID, our data showed that people were paying for 5 to 7 subscription services. Now, I don't know the data now, but
they are at 4 in the US. I just read it was 4, the average,
Right. So
which is close to 5.
Thinking right. So that's a lot. That's a lot. And I think that you will see a big increase in that over time. Because again, there is that immediate satisfaction that people can achieve.
To come back about these opportunities you bring having a more global distribution, open for producers. One point is the fact that they are produced more local, and to Europe, there is maybe an opportunity here that more than 60% of Netflix shows now are produced locally. So, in fact, it's quite a good news that the taste of the audiences are demanding this local content. So, from theater or from platforms, it will bring, in theory, more business for European producers. What do you think of that? And then Gerardo.
I think it comes back to what I was mentioning earlier, which is streamers are an amazing opportunity, but at the same time, we have to be a bit careful about what kind of new relationship they create with the producers, and what are we really willing to maintain within the scope of the producers versus what is going within the scope of the platform, because they are evolving and they're trying new methods and new business model, as was mentioned. So yes, they're investing a lot in Europe, and this is a huge opportunity. But again, we have to look at what we want. In particular, intellectual property rights, which is what Gerardo was mentioning a bit earlier, is something that is really important for European producers to keep. So coming from a Brussels public affair point of view, which is my role within CEPI, I think that we need to identify what is really important for the European producers, so that we can ensure that we have a landscape or a legislative landscape that's going to nurture that together with the platform. We need to find a way to integrate them, but in the end, have the entire industry work together with a level playing field where producer can actually work together with platform if they want to, or differently if they rather won't go through a different distribution channels. But in the long term, it actually is going to be to work together for a better outcome.
Isn't it starting somehow right now, because the Audiovisual Media Services Directive imposes, this 30% quota
Yes.
from this next month almost.
Yeah,
it should happen soon.
It is, so yes. So we see what we see is that there's already a first take into consideration of the change of the business. The Audiovisual Media Services Directive, which was adopted over 2 years ago, was meant to be transposed by member state last September, and we see a lot of member states are very late in the process. It basically had, with regard to streamers, two important facts. One was the content of European work in their catalog, and the bare minimum was 30%, which most of the countries from the top of my mind have followed. The second part was the investment obligation. There was this idea that they need to invest in European content through different mechanisms. And here we really see a huge variation between the different obligations that member states have imposed. We have France and Italy, which have imposed rates from 20% in France, 12.5% in Italy, which are really high.
For Spain, what it is,
It's very low.
Very low, yeah, yes. I was waiting that she finished, because that is a fight that we have
Mathilde.
now with
Yes.
the platform. Because sorry for that.
No, please.
But I would like to say something, because something good from this panel is that opened my mind to think, because they believe another thing, and I am a person who goes a couple of time every week to see a movie in a theater. And I'm going to put an example of an American small movie that I saw the other day in Madrid. It was an American small movie called, I don't remember the title, but this Kelly Richard movie. It's the Cowboys. It's a Chinese, sorry?
First Cow.
First Cow, exactly. That movie, how I know that movie? Because they open in a cinema. I will never know about that movie if they go direct to a platform. And I explain why. When I go to see a movie, I see the publicity. The publicity in the papers, digital or I still like to read in paper, but digital or in paper, that means they open in the magazine, they speak about that movie in the magazine, different kind of magazine, cinema magazine, but also the magazine of the newspaper. They speak about that movie in the radio. You know about that movie because that movie is in the cinema. Because if he's not in the cinema, if he's direct to a platform, For example, in Netflix, you don't see many of the movies that do speak that are not, because Netflix don't promote that movies. They only promote the series that they want to do, or the movies they invest a lot of money. But the small movies, I don't see any more movies from Argentina, from Colombia, from many parts of Europe. Italy, I don't see Italian movies, only Allouch movies, only the movies of the festival, but the movies who are a big prize in a festival. You are losing a lot of the culture of Europe and the culture of Latin America because you don't see that movie. Maybe and what they do with locals is also against the co-production in Europe, because we have this custom to co-produce. I co-produce with Belgium, I co-produce with France, I co-produce with many European countries, and every day, like they only want to local product, we are losing that. And we are going to lose more and more and more. And I think in that, I am very pessimistic. I need artistically talking. I'm not talking about the money of the
business
people or the companies, because that is different. I don't feel that. I am not a businessman. I am a filmmaker, and I want to keep to fight for the filmmaker. And in Spain, going back to that, the platform are so powerful that they combine even the socialists, that the good things are there, because they are bringing a lot of American big projects, and they are going to give a lot of job, and they are going to invest a lot of money in Spain. Who is thin, but I am not a higher people. I don't lose my soul. I don't lose my people, because doing that is I am losing my possibility to create my projects.
That's in fact a question for you, Marian. You are an expert in spending money to launch movies. Is it only on big movies, or do you think that also the platforms, if we name them, I mean, in their budget allocations, they can promote smaller movies, independent movies? Or for Didier?
I mean, I think that they can absolutely promote them. I think publicity is still an incredible generator of attention. I also think the trailers are very important. And in the States, I have to be honest, Rotten Tomatoes, so reviews, Rotten Tomatoes has become a very strong aggregator of films and reviews, and people really look at them. I think that paid media, like, I also still get it, I get to, I read 3 print newspapers a day, and I think I am probably in the anomaly, because like you, I like to look at the newspaper, I like to see where the ads are, I like to, I learn all kinds of other things. I think there is a certain reality to that, and that reality is people are not reading newspapers the same way, and I also believe that there's a difference in the demographic that are potentially being, I do think digital media is effective, and I think you're able to be very cost effective. The difference with Netflix or any of these large sites that have a lot of things is it's very difficult to distinguish yourself without very specific publicity. And so I think you need that. And the other question is where that streamer puts the attention, because they have their internal algorithms that they use. And I'll use an example. I think I had an Arabic film this last fall that, was all in Arabic. It was shot, it was an American production company. Netflix bought it. And, we had coverage in the US, but I have to tell you, in the Middle East, we had tremendous coverage, and the film did really beautifully. So it's a bit of a combination of things. It's not always easy, but even before the streamers on these independent films, it's very tough. It's always been very tough to garner attention. The bigger problem, and Didier can speak to this, is, journalism is becoming a more sacred, even more sacred than it was before. I think film criticism is lacking. I think we need stronger, educated film critics that are seeing enough things that they can have an opinion that's respected. I think we see a demise in this area because the aggregation is not To me, the Rotten Tomatoes it's great in some ways, but it's very dismissive in other ways.
Didier, you're
No, I
on the
totally
subject.
agree. I'm gonna go even further. I'm calling it the dictator of Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, you don't watch a movie now. You watch a movie because Rotten Tomato gave it above 75%. Otherwise, they don't even go for it, which is a problem. It is a real problem because taste of people are really different, and we are, thank God, very different from each other. And tastes are different, and you can love a movie that nobody liked. And in my time, we had critics from all over the place. We read the newspaper, we read from the New York Times, from the LA Times, from the Variety, from everywhere. And now we go to Rotten Tomatoes. It's a problem. It's a real problem. But I must add that not only the streamers can do marketing, but they do. They spend a lot of money on marketing some movies that are not that obvious. Of course, it's for obvious reasons. It's at the award season. We can see like tons of billboards in LA with small movies that nobody has ever heard from if they were not in Sundance or Toronto. But they're doing it. I mean, they're spending the money on that. And also, to answer to Gerardo, they don't need to make this much marketing on the movies. They know what you like. They know exactly what you're watching. If you liked First Cow and you watch it on I think it's on Amazon here in LA. I'm not in the US. I'm not sure, but let's say it's on Amazon. Amazon knows that you like this movie, so they're gonna advise you some movies like that. They're gonna say, "Oh, you like Kelly Reichardt, so maybe you can watch some movie by Andrea Arnold, and maybe you can watch this kind of stuff since you like this one." So it is a new age. It is really a new age. Marketing is still important. And I know that, Marian, I know that you guys are doing a job in transforming it, in using other venues. Newspapers are still here, and thank God, and I hope they will stay here. But there is other stuff. We know that influencers are very important, and we know that you're working on different paths. But it's not that needed anymore. I mean, it's still here, and it has to be there. But they know what you like. They know what you're watching. The danger here is that you're only going to look at what you have watched before. So you have to expand. You have to make an effort. You have to be an active audience. You have to go to something else. Otherwise, you will love everything that Netflix advises you because you love a movie that looked like that before. So yes, there is a big difference. It's asking much more from the audience now. And it's a responsibility that we all have. Distributor, producers, marketer, we have to think of that. We have to, and journalists, of course, we have to involve our audience. We have to involve the people we are making the movies, marketing the movie, or distributing the movie for. We have to tell them, make an effort, look for something else. Maybe you don't have money to go to the theaters twice or 3 times a week, but it's on Netflix, it's on Amazon. The movies are there. You can watch on Hulu. You're already paying for that. So make an effort, try to do something. And I'm very optimistic on that because the kids are doing the effort. The kids are talking to each other. In the schoolyard, in the mall, everywhere where teenagers are, they're talking about the movies they just saw, and they're going home and watching them. Unfortunately, mostly on their phone, but that's something else. They're still watching them. So yes, I'm pretty optimistic on that. I do have the same concern as Gerardo have. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong, but I'm pretty much optimistic about that. I think that what's happening with the streamers and what we're seeing is that the new generation of cinephiles, the new generation of film goers, they will be more open. I mean, guys, they watch a show like Casa de Papel. Who said that a show in Spanish, this much Spanish would be like a triumph all over the world? And 10%, Call My Agent in English, it's a triumph all over the world. Who would say that 10 years ago? So I have this optimism that the audience is changing and they are more open and they're looking for very diverse entertainment. Sure. And that makes me optimistic.
Yeah. Shannon, do you share this point of view? Is it in this new world more difficult, the same? I mean, you just have to progress in the methods and using more digital, but to promote more confidential movies that you would produce?
No, I think that there are so many more options, and I whether you're a big movie or a small movie, you have a budget, and it's easier sometimes to hit your audience where it's at today. So you have to analyze whether you're going to take that newspaper ad or whether you're going to go do 10 other digital, clips, trailers, teasers, etc. You kind of you have more options where you used to just have the TV, the newspaper, the radio. These kids have their phones, or everybody does. It's not just kids, but it's how do you meet people where they're at and kind of get the message out there. So I think you have more options as a matter of how you spend your money smartly, whether you're a small movie or a big movie. So I think options are great, and the world is a much smaller place than it used to be, and it's easier to have something go viral, whether it starts here in LA and makes it over to Spain. The message gets out there on some things, but you do have some of your smaller movies that do get lost, but that's where on the platforms it's great because they do tell you might like something, as Didier said. So
yeah, it's if I don't know if this benchmark can help, but in BetaSeries we analyze how people find their content, so mostly TV series, and they say that 40-45% they just use trailers, and sometimes it's recommended but sometimes it's not, so they just navigate and lose some time to find, so they need to progress on that. A quarter they read the critics, and a quarter they listen to their peers, family or friends or the social networks. So several ways in fact to expose a movie, and it's a bit more different than before, where you needed absolutely to have one big promo in the main newspaper, otherwise nobody could find you. So,
although I would interrupt, sorry to interrupt, but trailers have probably been the most motivating factor on films for the last 25 years. I don't think that has actually changed. I think that trailers have always been one of the most persuasive. It's just you can see them in so many places. You don't have to just see them in a movie theater anymore.
Can I just come back on what Didier just said, which I think is really important, and you're absolutely right. Platforms know exactly what we want to watch, and that in itself is a huge competitive advantage. So yeah, it does have the advantage that it's going to show you movies that you're most likely willing to watch, and maybe the small movie you didn't even know existed. But at the same time, knowing that those platforms are investing more and more in production, it definitely influences their choice, what kind of content they want on their platform, their production decision as well. And it is a huge advantage when they're negotiating with producers. Again, coming back from the producer's relationship with platform, I think access to information and to data is a key competitive advantage for those platforms. Sure. And this is part of the trend which I believe we need to absolutely assess for a more mid to long term basis to see how the market's going to change, because at the moment it does not allow a level playing field when we're negotiating as a producer with a platform. So it is a key element. And just maybe one point is data, and data use as a competitive advantage is a huge topic of conversation in Brussels right now.
Yeah.
They have a clear understanding about what a gatekeeper is. I'm not saying a platform like Netflix is a gatekeeper. I'm saying there are discussions about it. However, the European legislator, for the moment, is only looking at Google and Facebook for other topics. Audiovisual is completely out of the scope. And my game is that we get to assess what's going to happen so we can make sure to take decision before we reach the situation that exists in other sectors where it's already too late to try to address the situation.
That's really European, and this legislation, that's a
Yes.
big topic on the table. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but you have maybe less these issues to that all countries should agree on taxes and everything. So that makes it a bit more tricky here in Europe. We are quite at the end of our panel, and I think that as you are professionals, extremely recognized, and you have this view on the global view on the industry, how would you project this film distribution industry in 5 or more years? Just a couple of sentences to give us a final hint about that. Maybe Didier, and we'll go all of you if you want to give your point of view.
You asked me what I think the industry will be in 5 or 10 years. My answer is I really don't know.
That's it.
I mean, what we saw in this last year is unbelievable. I think it's Marian who said before it was an accelerator of what was happening. But the acceleration was like, wow, this is unbelievable. All the things that have changed in 1 year, just 1 year. It's a new world. I really, really, really don't know. I'm optimistic. I'm like Gerardo. I believe in movies. I'm like I think everyone around this panel. I believe in movies. This is the most important. I believe in the content, and I believe that the audience will go to the best content, and they are, and that will not change. But now, where are we going to see it? How are we going to see it? And who's going to watch it? Really don't know. This is what my job is to observe this kind of changement. So it's beautiful to watch. I mean, it's one of the most fascinating period I've ever seen in terms of work and observation. But guys, for you, my heart goes with you guys. I really don't know where this is going. So,
Shannon, what would you say? How do you feel this industry in a few years?
Well, like you said, like who knows where it's going to go? I know that I'll still be out there fighting for, movies to go to the theaters, so people had that wonderful collective experience. I mean, same time you do things for platforms, but I think that's really important. Over the last year, that underrepresented voices have risen, above, and I hope that we can continue to recognize, different voices and embrace the stories that they can go to the theater or to streaming, whichever way they may go, but that they can be recognized. So that's hopefully where a lot of it's going to go.
Another producer, another continent, Gerardo, in 5 years, 10 years in Spain, distribution, how do you feel
I would like to be so optimistic that they are. I would like to be in that, but I don't see that. I don't see, but I am not capable to see in 5 years. I don't know. I want to keep what I have. For example, before I can produce a lot of movies in Latin America. Now it's impossible. For me, it's impossible. I have been producing like 40, 50 movies in Latin America, and I was part of a company in Argentina, and I produced movies in Colombia, in Mexico, in Chile, in Cuba, in everywhere. All, not in Brazil, in the only country because the Spanish is not there. And we have a creativity scene. I create a program to develop projects with Latin American talent. I believe in the Latin American talent a lot. I think we have a wonderful language, can speak a lot of people. But I think, I think they don't have the opportunity. Only the Mexican. Now, because most of the chiefs of the companies these companies, the Spanish side are Mexican, and they go Mexican who study in America, in the state, who have the mentality of a Mexican, but with American in their head, because the movies they produce, you can see what they are. But that is something that what we lost. I don't know what you think about the European co-production, because now, before I can co-produce Ken Loach's movie, I can co-produce, and I co-produce with them like 20 movies, and now it's impossible also for me to be part of the co-production of big European movies. That is something that I would like to recover, because I don't see they are bringing us. Because another thing I want to say, I forgot before when I put the sample of the Kaylee Richard movie, that this is a movie that you only can see in a cinema. This movie you cannot see in a platform. It's impossible. I think myself, autocritical, I think I will don't stay watching on the TV at home, because you need a concentration that you need to have in a theater to see this kind of movies, that you never will have watching movies with the telephone, with the daughter and the son who arrive, with something happen all the time while you are watching. You don't have the possibility to concentrate in watch this kind of movie. I don't know if you know a Spanish platform called Filming. Have you heard about Filming? No, but try to see what Filming is showing to the people, because I think that is the way we have to. I think Europe have to create 2 or 3 big European platforms.
Mathilde, maybe on that point, in 5 years, will you
I
make
believe
enough
in
lobbying
5-year platform filming will have not only Spanish people, they are almost 400,000 and we are going to be close 500,000 of people who pay to watch filming, and I think filming is the future of the European cinema.
Mathilde, the final word, and maybe you will develop these platforms on behalf of all independent producers.
That's another topic, but
do you know filming? No.
No. I think we're going to go through a lot of changes, but we need to identify what is really needed in our industry for independent producers, so that we can carry on producing great content, as you were saying earlier, in a way that fits with all the changes, all the business models, so we can adapt to all those changes, all the new technologies, etc., etc. But we need to really look at what do we need as the status of independent producers in terms of legal framework, in terms of contractual relationship. What is it that we need so that we can carry on having that diversity and that creativity that makes people go watch film, whether it's on platforms or in a cinema?
Makes a lot of sense. Marian, final word about the future.
You know, I believe in storytelling and I believe in creatives. And so the format of it and the consumption of it, I'm sure is going to change over time. But I believe that there will always be an audience, and where we consume it, how we consume it may vary, but there will always be an audience for this type of storytelling, whether it's short form or long form. And I think there are so many incredible voices around the world that I'm really looking forward to seeing where that comes and how it develops over the next 3, 5, 10 years.
Great conclusion. We all agree about the storytelling. I don't know, Joanna, if we have Q&A.
Do we have any question here in the audience? Okay. Quick, we'll make it quick because we've got just one we can quickly do on the...
Yes, I'll try to do it quick. I kind of agree with Gerardo in a way that I saw the
mask lady, yeah.
I saw the nominee, Uncle Frank, which is nominated with and I enjoyed it a lot, but I didn't know it existed, and it's directed and written by Alan Ball. So the algorithm has gaps, and I went to cinema school, and I believe that sometimes you have to expose yourself to a movie that you don't like, or because if they only feed you that the things that I like true crime, so I only see true crime, because in order to build a palette, in order to build up your taste, we need, as someone said earlier, critics that point out what must be discovered, and it's not obvious, like the huge hit that is the taste of the month. So I think there's a challenge, so movies that are different don't get left out. It's not really a question, but maybe can tell me what you think about it.
It's an interesting comment that goes in the direction of bringing more critics and being careful about the way content is recommended by platform. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Any other?
Yeah, there's just one question quite interesting. Maybe you can just throw that out if somebody wants to pick it up quickly.
Yeah.
From Tina Bianchi on the Zoom. It says, what are the measurements of success in the streaming era? Then in the movie theaters era, it was with the box office and how long a title was on the billboard. For a TV film title that keeps attracting an audience, or a TV show with high ratings, I think we got. So what is it now? So I think we're going back to the beginning. Well, how do the streamers, what is the measurements of success in the streaming years in comparison to a movie billboard or a TV show with high ratings, I think?
So who want to pick it up? I would say...
I can. Yeah. It's, from a data standpoint, but it's not published. It is a business decision internally, and there is no Nielsen, there is no box office. It is not something that streamers share publicly. But Remi, you may have data coming in on that now.
I do. But I think that beyond this data and access to information, the criteria, the KPI, in fact, is probably less audience and entries in the box office, of course, than recruiting subscribers, which is one point. This one is pretty easy. How many people you recruit? Does this movie help you to recruit a minority or some other people? And the second point, and someone said that, is about the fact that how many people will subscribe, how many platforms people will subscribe to. So there will be a big fight about retention, reducing the churn, retaining, in fact, the audience. So that this kind of movie, help to keep my subscribers. So this is a new kind of mindset, probably that at least in TV series it's obvious, and I guess it's the same also for movies. But I don't know if somebody else want to add something on that.
Isn't it the buzz itself? I mean, isn't it the fact that people are talking about a show, a show like Tiger King was like, it went like this. I mean, nobody talked about this before. Nobody knew it even existed. And then the I don't know, social networks and IM and stuff like that, they all were about that. So everybody was watching. Isn't it the most? You're right, Remi. They don't give numbers. We don't know what's happening. They only talk about numbers when they have like huge success, and we can verify them. So, should we? I mean, it's a question maybe for all of you guys. Should we, based our judgment of a success of a streaming show or movie, by the buzz itself, by how it is, or is it? Are they working on that too? I mean, just a question.
It's for Marian. You're doing promotion and.
I mean, I think I go back to HBO model of 20 years ago, which was a subscription-based model, and the way that the subscribers, they kept their subscription was due to the quality of programming they did, and that's how increased it. And so, Remi, as you had said, I think that there has to be a continuity of a lot of content that subscribers are satisfied by. When you are a Netflix or an Amazon or a Hulu or Disney Plus, there's such a vast library, right, that it would be impossible not to satisfy an audience. And then for those that have very specific tastes, there are very specific places that you can go and see films and television. I think what's happened is films and television, because of binging, are probably no longer mutually exclusive, because binging has created this like 3, 4, 5 hour viewing, which films sort of had only before. But again, I go back to going to a cinema too. And there's this fundamental business plan that needs to be met financially, and I have argued for my whole career, art and commerce can meet, but there has to be fiduciary responsibility on both parts, and that's always the struggle. I think that's always the struggle. But look, and I use HBO as the example because it's the most prominent one that I know of. But 20 years ago, people were fine subscribing to HBO. Now they're subscribing to 4 or 5 services, and still, look, we have 2 films that just crossed the $100 million box office between Quiet Place 2 and what was the other one? Was it
Godzilla?
And Godzilla, exactly.
Godzilla.
And in another week with F9 coming out, we're going to see that happen again. So look, $100 million in a box office is a lot of money when you then compare it to other businesses. Let's be honest. It is significant amount of money.
Yeah.
So there are these opportunities, and they're happening, and they're going to continue to happen.
Good points. Thank you so much. That was a great discussion. A lot of topics, different point of views. Thank you again here in Paris. And in LA, in New York, all of you, see you very soon, hopefully here, physically in the festival next year. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for everybody for joining from Didier, Allouch, Mathilde Fiquet, Gerardo, Herrero, Marian, Koltai-Levine, Shannon Mcintosh from all over the world, virtually in person. And thank you very much to Remi Tereszkiewicz for your great moderating. Thank you for coming. Thank you for attending on Zoom. And we will see you tomorrow morning for a Producers One-on-One virtual event with Gareth Neame and Piv Bernth. I'm sure you all know. Following that, we have an in-person conversation with the Czeki Cario, who is a Crystal Nymph, a winner from this year. And then to close our business content this year, we have a great CEO conversation with Anna Marsh, CEO of Studio CANAL. These will be moderated by Rebecca Leffler. So we hope to see you from 10 a.m. CEST time tomorrow morning for our final morning. Thank you. Have a great evening. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.